Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to a special edition of Community Talks. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Roy Rickhuss, General Secretary of Community Union. Let's meet Roy and find out more about him and also about the union that he represents. Roy, welcome to SIKH Channel.
Oh, thank you very much for having me and inviting me to speak to you today. I'm really pleased to be able to be with you. My name's Roy Rickhuss. I'm originally from Wolverhampton in the United Kingdom in the West Midlands, and my union originally many years ago was based in the manufacturing sector within the UK and predominantly in the steel industry. I myself left school and went to work in the steel industry and very quickly got involved with the trade union. I was really passionate about workers' rights and representing working people, and therefore I got involved quickly with my union. In 2004, the union diversified significantly and we merged with another union, KFAT, which was the knitwear footwear union, and we formed Community. So some people think Community is a relatively young or new union from 2004, but actually our roots go back many years before that. KFAT had a long history. They were predominantly in footwear and the textile industry. And like us, like my original union, the steel union, they were rooted in communities. And that's sort of where the name came from, because we wanted to develop a union that wasn't just for the workplace, a union that was also for our communities and helped to support people and to support communities where they lived, not just where they worked. Obviously, the workplace is the most important thing, and our work is focused towards workplace issues, but we also have a number of projects and initiatives that take place in the communities where our members live.
And Roy, at the moment, the unions in some parts of the press and perhaps in the public perception are receiving a very bad image because of strike action. We've had the long-running rail strikes, we've got postal strikes, the nurses were on strikes, and then some of my colleagues in the legal profession, the barristers, were on strike until recently. There seems to be a striking epidemic across the UK. Are the unions to blame for this? What's going on? Why is everybody striking?
I get frustrated, if I'm honest with you, and slightly upset when I hear politicians who automatically want to make political issues for their own progress or for their own agenda, and they will blame unions. You hear the expressions such as militant unions and union barons. And that's really frustrating, because what they are trying to do is to deflect the real situation onto working people, and for working people to take the blame for what is currently happening within the economy and within this cost of living crisis. So there is no such thing, in my opinion, as a militant union. Unions are democratic, and in the UK, we have to abide by the strictest, most stringent regulations and law that's placed on any trade union movement anywhere else, certainly across Europe. We have to meet that many legal requirements to be able to ballot our members. We have restrictions on the turnout of members voting in a ballot. So do you honestly think that working people would vote to go on strike if they did not care passionately about the issue that was causing them that concern and that frustration? No
So,
union leader I know votes in ballots. We don't have a vote. It's the members who vote democratically. And of all the thousands of workers that are on strike, a vast majority of those workers would have voted for that action because they care passionately about their jobs, their pay, their terms, their conditions, and their future, their job security.
yes, it's been reported in the BBC just yesterday that ministers took a very hard line with the railway union, prevented a deal being made which would have seen an end to strike action. Also, recently in the news, we've seen that the cap on bankers' bonuses will be removed. The financial regulation around the city are being relaxed to allow people to earn, already earning perhaps £1 million a year, some of them, to earn much more. What is going on? Why is there such a stark inequality? Why can't workers receive a fair and reasonable settlement? And why are the city and already very wealthy people being looked after further? What is going on?
I think it's about choices. I think it is the choices that the people who we elect to look after us, to take care of our economy and our jobs and job security. You have to look at what is happening within the political sort of realms. And it is not the unions who are trying to politicise a dispute. The unions who are involved in the disputes are trying to get the best possible terms and conditions and salary and pay for their members. That is what they are asked to do by their members. And the pressure on the unions is actually coming from the membership. I know that members are saying, we are struggling. We can't survive. We can't pay our bills. We're using food banks. We're switching the heating off. We're switching the energy off over night time. So we can't be warm and we can't feed ourselves. You are our union, and we want you to help us, and we want you to try and do something about that. And that's what unions are doing. That's what they do. They look after their members and they try to be there for their members. It is the government who are politicising the issue by using this, I think, my opinion, in some way as a political football to attack the Labour Party by saying, oh, there you go, look, militant unions, union barons, and the Labour Party. They're trying to make political gain. That's why I don't know, to be honest with you, all the facts behind the rail dispute. My union isn't involved, other than the fact that we support the rail workers and the postal workers with everything we've got. But so I don't know the finer details of what's been said and what hasn't been said. But I do believe the government will try to prevent a deal being struck because they are using this as a political football to try and bash the Labour Party and bash the trade unions.
There is a real concern over inflation. Many people, economists, will tell you that inflation is the very worst thing for a democratic country. Inflation can cause a lot of unhappiness and a lot of problems, not just economic, but also social. And the wage spiral argument, that wages going up when we're already in a very inflationary environment, will just make matters much worse. Why can't the workers just sit tight and not ask for higher wages whilst inflation is high, perhaps until inflation is under control, and then wages can be looked at a later date? Is that a fair assessment, do you think?
Think it's particularly fair because there is no evidence. In fact, I believe the evidence is to the contrary, that wages have not risen significantly in this country for a very, very long time, maybe even sort of decades. So how we can now blame wage increases for inflation, I just don't know. Some economic genius will have to explain that one away. I don't accept it. I know a lot of very important economic experts do not accept the argument that wages keeping track with inflation causes further inflation. I think the government is using that again as a stick to beat us with, and needs to look deeper at what is causing the inflation that we're seeing now, and to try and tackle those issues. But asking workers to wait and sit tight and everything will be fine, and you know, it's not possible. People are desperate. People are struggling. People are on the breadline. We've seen the absolutely massive increase in the use of food banks in this country, and working people who've got jobs, who've got good jobs, are having to go to food banks because they can't afford to buy sort of food for their families. So I don't think it's acceptable to say to working people, this crisis has been caused by whether it's Putin's war or whether it's energy costs, whatever it is. I think it's unacceptable to say to working people who are just trying to do their best by their families, they're just trying to support their family, you have to pay the price. You have to be the ones that suffer. And as you said earlier, the bankers' bonuses, the boardroom profits are all going to continue to rise, but workers have to pay the price for the mess that this government has created. So I don't think that's acceptable. And I think working people standing up for their rights is what it's all about, what we should be doing.
And so, do you say the system is not working? The system of capitalism, of democracy, which is tied to capitalism, it doesn't seem to be working very well because of the growing inequality. There's a lot of studies that have shown the gap is getting bigger and bigger between ordinary working people and the wealthy and the super rich. And where will this lead to? Will people become very disillusioned? And it is leading to some extremes in politics, whether it's to the left or the right. We can see lots of extreme politics are surfacing on the internet and social media. And will community union be dragged into that extreme of politics and be forced to become a militant, as you said earlier, a militant union? Because people will have to take a side. And if we are becoming increasingly a polarized society, you'll have to naturally go towards the extreme left.
I don't accept that, and I don't think that has to follow. I think what we need is a government that's on the side of working people, a government that makes the right choices of where they prioritise the resources of what is, the fifth wealthiest country in the world. So I don't accept that we have to lurch, and I reject outright all sorts of extremism, and if I'm honest with you, left and right. I don't think it works. And I think actually there's a fine line between where extreme left meets extreme right. So I reject that outright. My union believes passionately in working with good employers, and I've got to emphasise that little word there, good. If it's a good employer and they want to work in partnership and they want to have a partnership with their workforce and with their workforce's trade union, then that's where we are, and that's what we believe in. And we actually believe we can achieve a lot when we work in partnership with good employers. If they're bad employers, then we need to take them on. We need to challenge them. We can't let bad employers treat our members, with disrespect and with any lack of fairness or dignity. So good employers have got nothing to fear from trade unions. Good employers actually embrace trade unions. I haven't seen recent figures, but statistics used to be that of the top 100 companies in this country, the vast majority of them recognised trade union and worked with a trade union. So I don't accept that we have to lurch from extreme left to extreme right. I think what we need is to get a government that makes the right choices, prioritises helping families and helping all workers wherever they are on the spectrum, getting people into work, increasing skills, making people feel valued, sharing productivity. Productivity in this country is rock bottom. We're on the lowest. We must be in the relegation zone of countries for productivity. And therefore, we need to increase productivity. It's not a dirty word. We need to work with good employers to increase productivity, but then to share that productivity with working people. That's about the choices that we can make, and we need a government who will make those right choices for us.
And in terms of the trade union movement, trade unions have been around for over 150 years. It's got a huge legacy, a historic part of the industrial world, and trade unionism has spread all across the world, and we see trade unions everywhere. But is it an increasingly legacy project of unions becoming increasingly marginalized? There's been falling membership for many decades. And do unions have a place in the modern world where we've got a lot more transparency with social media, with the internet? And what's the future for community union? Are you going to set to decline, or do you think there's any growth? Will the unions come back?
Actually, in the last few years, trade union membership in the United Kingdom has increased, and it has been on on an upward trajectory. So I think unions are as relevant today as they've always been. But I do accept that one of the challenges we have, and not just a community, but I think the trade union movement, is attracting young people and getting young people into the movement and seeing the movement as relevant to them. And I'm not a doom and gloom sort of person. I believe young people are passionate and they do care. You see how many young people are engaged with the environmental issues. I was actually privileged to attend COP26 in Glasgow a year or so ago, and it was fantastic to see all the young people who care passionately about the planet, about the environment, about the climate, about climate change, to see the tens of thousands of young people who marched through Glasgow. Even though it was pouring down with rain, they were still there because they were passionate. Now, that tells me that young people have got this sort of, they can be inspired. We can get young people into our movement. That has to be the future for community, and it has to be the future for the trade union movement, is finding how we can become relevant to the younger generation. Too many of the trade union people look a lot like me. We're old. We're probably in our latter years. So we need to appeal to young people to get them into the movement and to drive the movement forward, which I know they can. Community, I'm really optimistic. I think community has a great future. I think our future is, as we kind of outlined it when we were formed, we have to do more work in the community. We have to be rooted where our members live. We're trying to develop that all the time. We have a number of ongoing initiatives and projects where we're working with community organisations, with charities, to try and build partnerships to grow the union within sort of communities as well as the workplace. So yeah, I am optimistic. I think trade unions are as relevant now as we always have been. We've got our challenges, but we'll meet those challenges. I'm confident that we will.
The pandemic has brought a lot of change in working attitudes, the working environment, home working, flexibility. Many people have left the workforce altogether. And so there's a lot of change in people's mindset towards work. It's not perhaps as structured and as formal as it used to be. And how does your union accommodate people who are perhaps working freelance or working from home and want all that flexibility, and maybe not in a setting where there with lots of workers or colleagues in an office or a workplace where a union can be seen and heard and is a collective, and people are dispersed now. And in that environment, how does community union cater for those sort of members?
Well, I think there's a number of questions there. I mean, you've opened quite a big sort of conversation. The I think flexible working. I think first, I'll start off by saying I think the pandemic forced all of us, not just unions, but all organisations, to look at how they operate, to look at what they need to do, and to change. And in some ways, that change was needed, and it needed the pandemic. Don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously, I'm not. The pandemic was absolutely awful, and many thousands and thousands of people were affected by it. But it forced us to make the changes that we probably needed to make. And had that not happened, we probably wouldn't have made those changes. We're talking now, using a different form of communication, and that has been opened up because out of necessity. We had a lot of our staff, community staff now, who were having to work from home because of lockdown, etc. And I'm proud. I'm so proud of every one of them, because we didn't see any reduction at all in our productivity and our service to our members. We were there for our members right the way through the pandemic, and even in some ways you could argue more so, because we created a member support network to support our members through that pandemic. So we've seen lots of companies now, lots of organisations who had to change the way they did their business, and they embraced working from home, flexible working, flexi hours, etc. And that is here to stay. I think there will be some sort of move back to office working, because there's got to be a balance between people wanting to work from home and people needing to be part of a wider team and to have that wider interaction. I think there will be a balance struck between working from home and returning back to sort of workplace or office environments. But there's another question that kind of, I don't want to miss the point there. You said about freelancers, self-employed. In my opinion, the way the self-employed were treated during the pandemic in terms of the rights that they didn't have, shall we say, the support that by and large they didn't have, was something that really cannot be allowed to go by, and cannot be allowed to go without us challenging that. So self-employed people, freelancers, they are the creative people of our economy. They need our support, they need our help, they need better safety nets for when things like the lockdown happen. The creative industries, we need to be there, the government need to be supporting them far more. And I'm proud of my organisation, people like Kate Dearden, who were out there fighting, raising these issues, bringing it to the attention of government, and saying that the self-employed should not be the forgotten part of the economy. They are vital, they are important, they are creative, they create jobs, they create wealth, and we should be supporting them far more than we do.
Thank you very much. Roy Rickhuss, General Secretary of Community Union, and you've given us a really good insight into your work, into your membership. Thank you for that. And if anybody wants to join Community Union, what is the approximate cost and how do they join? Is it an easy process?
Well, we have a very good website that people can visit. The Google Community Trade Union, I'm sure it will come up. There is a joining link onto the union. The cost of the union varies depending on obviously your salary. So people on lower wages would join the union for around about £5 a month, which these days I think it's about £5, £5.70, less than £6 for sure. And that at the end of the day is what's that these days? 2 cups of coffee, or even 1 cup of coffee if you go to a Starbucks or Costa, I don't know. We think we are extremely good value for money. We give people help, we give people support. There's a whole range of benefits that you can get from being a community member. Please go on the website and have a look. We have hardship funds, benevolent funds. We're doing lots of work in our communities, not just in the workplace, but in the workplace. We make sure people know their rights. That's a big issue, people understanding what their rights are when they go to work, but then obviously representing people. And I think we should be there for the positive sides of working life as well, trying to help people with their careers, career development, upskilling. We've got lots of work that we do around training, education for our members and for our representatives. So overall, that's why I'm optimistic about community, because I think we have a lot to offer and we have a very good workforce that are there to support our members. So thank you very much. And if anybody does want to go to the website, please do. If you like what you see, please click on the link and come and join us.
That's tremendous. Thank you very much, Roy, for your time today. General Secretary of the Community Union, a very responsible position. You've got a lot to do. You've got a lot of members and members of the community and the public who need your assistance and help, especially in these very difficult times for everybody. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and views with SIKH Channel. And we hope to hear from you again in the future, particularly because you're from Wensfield, Wolverhampton, which is very close to the heart of SIKH Channel. There's many people there.
Yeah, I'm born and bred Wolverhampton, and I go back regular to see my family. I don't support the Wolves, so I don't want to upset anybody, but I like to see the Wolves do well, and good luck to everybody in Wolverhampton and everywhere else. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.